kind of always wanted to do this, the Live Aid homage of the intro. It's 5 o'clock in the UK, it's 1 p.m. in the US, and welcome to Print Island. My name is Richard Ascombe. Thank you for laughing at that one, Andrew. My name is Richard Ascombe. Welcome to Print Island. I'm down in the basement today, so apologies for what it looks like behind me. Unfortunately, there is a storm raging over the island today, and we had planned to do this outdoors on the beach, but unfortunately the weather has prevented us from doing that, so we're going to do it indoors instead. And my guests today for the webinar are safely in their own storm shelters. Welcome to Print Island, gentlemen, Andrew Oswood and Daryl Davis.
Thanks for having us.
It's nice to see you both. Thanks for coming. And today's quite an important day, really. It's my first live webinar that we've hosted here from the island. I know we've done a couple before with other guest hosts, but I'm used to doing recorded interviews rather than live. So forgive me if I start waffling and wandering off topic, but I am determined to keep you both on the topic of which today is AI. It's not failing you. The industry is, and we've got a great session lined up about the fact that AI isn't a shortcut, it's an outcome. For most print businesses, the conditions for that outcome simply don't exist yet. That's half the problem. But what we're going to try and do during this session with my guests is break this down into why AI initiatives fail in real print environments, where businesses are being misled, and what actually needs to change to make it work. And so for anyone out there watching this, either live or recorded, for anyone exploring AI or wondering why it hasn't quite delivered for them, the aim is to give you some clarity. And my guests today are very well placed to help us do that. And I'm going to let them introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about themselves and what they do and all about Innovaic. Let me hand you over first and foremost to Daryl Davis.
Thank you, Richard. Happy to be here. So I'm Daryl Davis. I'm the CTO and Vice President of Operations at Innovaic. Currently, we have been seeing a pretty big uptick, as most people have, in terms of AI and where it fits in their organization. This is something that particularly Innovaic is really understands and is looking to try to help customers move forward on, because it's a big thing. So we're taking a lot of our workflow automation as well as our process manufacturing experiences and trying to bring that to our customers who are looking at how to utilize this next generation of tool to more effectively utilize it in their business and hopefully try to avoid some unfortunate mistakes along the way, but mistakes we can always learn from, which is good, and we're there whether we're trying to avoid them or coming back from them.
Good, that's great. And Andrew Oswood, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I've been in the print industry as long as I can remember, and got into workflow and process automation. I've worked in pre-press. I've made plates, so I know the industry like the back of my hand, and I've been in it a long time. And moving from the production side and moving into the automation side, just learning the pitfalls of things that people have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and how we can build tools and build solutions to really help make your processes and your businesses more efficient.
I like it. And both of you sort of said the same thing there, which is quite interesting, is that a guide is needed, a map is needed to get people through, really the pitfalls as you described them of what AI can mean for them, to them. And I know you were both at DScoop recently at Edge Rocky's, big part of the hackathon that was there, one of the most successful I think that they've ever had. And of course at the start as well of the Digital Automation Club, of which you are founding members as well. Tell us a little bit about your experience, Daryl, at DScoop and really what you brought back from that.
Oh, what a fantastic experience that was. Hackathons are fun to begin with, but particularly with this community, I had talked a little bit about this before. I've been in industry a long time. I've been to a myriad of events and conferences and expos, and fill in the word that you want to use for it. D-Scoop was truly unique. Everybody had it reminded me more of the open source clubs that I had been in, where people are really wanting to share insights, issues, problems, things that they have experienced, and they seem to really care about the success of people who could even be considered their competitors, but that they're all kind of working together to figure out, what is coming next and what's important. And so that community was truly inspiring.
And I guess that goes to the heart really of what Innovaic and who Innovaic are as a company, because that open collaboration has to be just that, doesn't it? Open on both sides. D-Scoop's the perfect environment for that, because it's that sort of place anyway. But tell me a little bit more, both of you, about Innovaic and really your approach to the world of print.
Yeah. So our company is, again, a bunch of people that have been in the industry for a long time, with a lot of print experience. And we've seen the mistakes that different companies have made, and solutions that they've tried to come up with, where, this system isn't talking to that system. And what we've really tried to do is try to find like the best possible solution, the best tools that we've found after working with all the different other industry tools, and try to really come up with a solution that works for it. When we were at D-Scoop, a lot of people would talk about, well, I'm having these problems. My system doesn't do this. It doesn't do that. I'm having data problems. And I just don't have a complete picture of everything that my business is trying to accomplish. And we're trying to solve those problems.
That's good. That's great. And I guess everyone came back from D-Scoop, Daryl, talking about AI and how to use it. It is the hottest of hot topics at the moment across the industry. But before we get into the detail, let's imagine for 1 second, and it won't be a stretch. Let's imagine that I'm an idiot, and you have to tell me how would you categorize what most print businesses actually think AI is right now?
Oh, that's a hot question. A little bit loaded there, Richard. I think, in terms of answering that question, I don't think that this is limited to the print industry by any means. And the biggest challenge that I think all of companies, especially those companies at D-Scoop and those are failing, is where does AI fit? And a lot of the things that we're going to talk about right now are places that, let's take AI off the table, any of this fill in the blank new tool that comes out that should help us make our businesses better, we can sometimes go down rabbit holes and, potentially get into the hype more than into the strategy. And hopefully we can try to give direction. One of the things that we had talked about in kind of prep of this is effective AI is probably going to be boring, and everybody wants AI to be exciting. And it can be in the right instance, but as most things that are built well, we need it. It will most likely affect those things that are boring to free you up to focus on the exciting things. And if we aren't going about it that direction, then we're going at it the wrong way.
And it tends to be a sort of a catch-all answer, doesn't it? And the answer isn't necessarily backed up by an awful lot of understanding. So when you hear someone say, well, we'll just get some AI in, then that'll solve it. I've even heard people, well, let's just buy some AI, and you get, okay, but what do they actually mean by that? And why is using AI as a catch-all the very first problem?
So, Richard, one thing, my last name's Oswood, so the nickname is Wizard of Oz, or the Wizard of Workflow. So I think a lot of times, since AI is thrown out there, they think it's magic, right? It's just they're gonna wave the magic wand. We're just gonna use ChatGPT or Claude or these tools, and we'll rebuild our MIS system. We'll make it work the way we want it to do. And there may be some really dedicated people that have dedicated resources that might be able to handle that. But most of the time, it's going to be just an overwhelming task, and it's not going to get them to where they want to be.
And I think that's half the problem, isn't it? Because, you said earlier on that context is everything for AI. And I guess in plain terms, what does an AI system actually need to know about a print business? Across the machines, the pricing, the products, everything that a print business needs before it can be any use at all.
Yeah, I think you said it there. The more data that we can give and the more data that we have access to, the better the AI is. The better your data, the more things you can tell it. What sheet sizes am I using? What are my margins on my devices? What are my capabilities? What binding equipment do I have? And the more you can build up that data, the more you can build up that context, the more data you can feed to AI and have it have better decisions. I know a lot of estimating tools will use just random generic data, the machine specs, but with the systems that we can build, we can actually pull what you're actually getting from the floor. We can actually get your live data and feed that into the system so you know what you can accomplish, not what your competitors can accomplish or what a generic Google search will tell you.
So the context there is quite interesting because there's not an awful lot of difference between training a large language model, an AI model, to help your business, and training an actual, employee. The same. They're an integral and important and critical part of your team, and therefore should know everything what you do as a business in order to be able to play that back to you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, there's a lot of really smart people that know a lot of things, and they are the AI. They have the idea now. If we can download their brain and put it into a system and then allow that system to make decisions based on that information, then if they're sick or they leave because they're a great employee and they go to another company, then you're lost because you lost like a piece of your AI. But if you own it, if it's in your system, that's a really powerful thing for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Daryl, the last time you were here on Print Island, you were on your way to Edge Rockies, and we had a great chat. And you threw at me what have now become known as Darylisms, and I've got one of them written down here because it's genius. It's what you describe as the shiny object trap. Tell us what it is, and why is vendor misdirection the first thing a print business should be wary of?
There are a lot of things that are very valuable to a business and an industry and a situation. And one of those things tends to be the, wanting to move quickly. And moving quickly is important. But what we tend to find is that there are a lot of companies out there who do what they do, and they do it really well. And they want to move quickly to market as well. And they want to leverage that wanting to move quickly kind of instinct that companies have. And the truth is from our perspective, moving quickly is really important, but you want to move quickly strategically, and you want to move quickly iteratively. I used to call it fail fast, right? And the trouble with the black box or the shiny object trap, as it were, is we're presenting this thing that potentially, looks really cool, and, we can show you it's this new thing, and there's a little bit of that fear of missing out. I think that kind of drives in, but that shiny object trap can be a misdirection because they're preying ultimately on that feeling of wanting to move quickly, and you can tend down a road that isn't going to fix the larger strategic initiative. And when it's small things, that's usually not a huge deal, because you can pivot quickly, or you might be able to integrate those. But to see AI as being compartmentalized is really to miss that large, bigger ecosystem. the way that from where we've come from in the past, before AI, the big move was, these large systems. Oh, well, you just need a large business system to handle it. You're going to get it in, tons of people use it, you're going to install it, it's going to solve all your problems. Everybody always thinks there's these problem solves. Well, then they found themselves trying to implement large business systems without the inability to know how to do so that it could make them effective. And a lot of people spent years and years and years literally on projects trying to make that happen. That is the concern of the AI. You can be moving into those systems, you can start utilizing them, the shiny object will be there, but without that plan and that trap and what we talked about, those guides, it could be a lot of wheel spinning, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, and history shows us that, doesn't it? That if a company makes something, they're probably going to tell you that it does everything, and then leave you to find out whether it's true or not. And that's that I guess is the shiny object trap that you spoke of. And I love the black box as well. That's you're very good at this. You should write an album of all of these. These are song titles right here. Let's put this to music and put it out. But why should people be skeptical, Daryl, when a tool appears? It magically turns up in their lap, if you like, and says that it can turn their data into something useful. Why should we be skeptical of that?
Because it goes back to the shiny object trap, right? It's sort of like, here's the shiny object, and then there's that willingness to vet it out. So now you're going to get this black box demo that says, okay, here it is. So here was the shiny object, and let's show you, what it can do. And there are a lot of situations that are like, oh yeah, give us your data, give us your information, give us your stuff. We'll show it all. And, it's gonna look, great. And it's, to Andrew and yours point, it's gonna look magical. But the big concern with that black box demo is that it doesn't take in any of the other systems in mind. Potentially there's no cohesion across it. It's usually you can't black box an entire business value demo. What you can do is show features and functions and things that this does. The challenging questions need to come after that. Okay, now how would I utilize this to measure my performance? So a good example is if they black box an AI estimator, the next question to them would be, how do you know those numbers are right? How do I know those numbers are right? Who's going to be able to vet? Those are the things that are usually missing in terms of the black box demos of, yep, we can take some data and we can produce some stuff and it looks cool. But how accurate it isn't a question most people can then answer. Because fundamentally for us, the black box demo is showing the AI in terms of tools. But what really should be considered as we kind of walk through this is getting into this AI as an ecosystem. AI needs to be able to have visibility and information in terms of your entire business system for it to be as effective as we hope that tool can be. And so if you're running your systems independently of one another, and it just as a human being would lack visibility into the other system, so does AI lack visibility into those other systems.
And I guess that or can lead, if you're not careful, to what you brilliantly call split brain syndrome. I guess that's what happens when a business's data is, as you've just described, scattered across many sort of silos, if you like, different spreadsheets, the CRM, the MIS, and then it comes back to you and none of it matches. So how talk us through that.
So as Andrew said before, as we started, really, when it comes to utilizing AI in your business system, context is everything. So when you start getting into these larger, more integrative systems that allow you to try to make those decisions, you tend to run into what we call that split brain. So if your estimator and your AI has access to a certain level of information, but then your business and production systems have access to a different set of information, and your sales and CRM systems have access to different, then there's spreadsheets that Bob keeps in the back because he has to know what reality really is. And, you know, he's breaking it out and training his people on the floor on it. Most companies aren't considering an ecosystem that brings all that together and allows the AI to give you good, accurate results about your particular business and your situation. So that's how we're splitting the brain. So now you have one part of the business making decisions on one AI and one ecosystem, and another part of the business making decisions and doing and executing and doing things on a different one. And that leads to, which you'll probably call another ism, the big fear of that leads to what I call the confidence death spiral. So at that point, nobody feels that they can trust their data. They've got the AI tools. They might have gotten this product and that product, and it ran okay for a couple of weeks, and people were really excited about it. But suddenly, you know, it's starting to fail, because the biggest problem with AI is that it's always going to live it's always super optimistic, and it's always going to live in a little bit of a fantasy world, and it's never going to see their gaps and the leaks the way that it needs to, unless it has a system built out to see it. And so now the people who are given this tool to use lose trust and won't use it. Now they're back to their spreadsheets, and now they're back to looking at another siloed product, and now we're back to looking at, oh, we just need a different AI product. This one seems to be better. And that confident death spiral leads into all of this investment with very little gain, and everybody wondering where it went wrong.
And I guess, Andrew, that's where the human sort of piece, once confidence starts to ebb away in anything, and that's where the human piece breaks down, isn't it? And when you have people pulling a file from one system and simply throwing it into ChatGPT or into Claude and kind of hoping that the answer's right, that you must see that a lot.
Yeah. I kind of call it the human integration piece, where I'm pulling this data from the spreadsheet or these emails or you know, this system or that, and they're the ones kind of orchestrating, actually using the AI tools. But again, the data isn't cohesive, it isn't together. And you know, I've fallen into the trap myself. Is I'm trying to solve a problem, I'm talking to AI, but I'm only focusing on like the one particular issue that I'm trying to solve. And that's where the human piece is. My job is estimating, so I'm going to work on using AI for estimating, and a salesperson is using an AI for sales, and pre-press might be using it for other things, and all of these different people, you know, creating these prompts. Are they looking at the full picture of the problem? Is you know, the system really built out to do that, or are they just using it in kind of like silos for their own little department in their own instance where they need to use it? And you know, we found with working on it is if you really kind of expand that out and look to more like, what is the overall ecosystem, what are you trying to solve, what are the parts? Because you can definitely go down rabbit trails or you know, rabbit holes, if you want to call it, where it'll get you the answer to the problem that you're trying to solve, but it may not work in the terms of the whole overall business or the overall process that you're trying to run with it.
And I guess that's one of what you call the swivel chair trap, isn't it, Daryl? That you know, why AI can never really account for all the manual copying and rekeying that happens between systems. You know, that's just a particular favorite, isn't it?
And AI is never going to know about all of that stuff people are doing manually. And the truth is a lot of companies that we talk to, I don't think they even understand all of the places things are being done manually. So if your own organization doesn't know which things are being moved, and we're entering information in this system and then swiveling over here to this system and entering it, in as well, those are things that AI is not going to be able to identify or understand. And so it doesn't mean that those things can't and shouldn't exist. I mean, business is business and there's always transition as it goes, but we can't expect AI to fill gaps in areas that we ourselves don't even fully understand all of the things that are happening and the reasons why and those situations.
Yeah.
So getting back to understanding that AI isn't a feature, that it's an ecosystem, and that in those places AI needs to be released and used in situations that allow you to get the most out of it, where a human being is generally getting the information they need to do their job better and faster with a certain level of confidence in what's coming out of that system, even the AI telling it with this amount of confidence. You're eliminating a huge amount of the boring stuff and freeing up your humans to focus on the things that matter. How can we get more out of operations? How can we get more out of our material usage? How can we get more out of our customers? How can we help more? How can we do more? Those are all the questions we all want to answer. And if your system is set up in a way that you feel like you're firefighting most of the time, AI generally isn't going to be able to come in and help and make those better. AI is going to be able to make the systems better so that things cannot feel like a giant firefight and you're not spending all of your time on the mundane items that need to be. So an example is, to us, we say the wrong question is, can AI estimate for me? Can AI estimate this print job for me? Is the wrong question. And the real question is, can AI help me identify if I have an opportunity to make more margin on what I'm estimating based on the telemetry of how my operations and materials are actually running through my system?
And fundamentally, I guess that's where businesses are being misled. I mean, I'm sure that's not the intention of whoever it is that's trying to sell a solution to them, but it's the outcome, isn't it? That if that conversation isn't had and the wrong question is asked and therefore the wrong answer is given, then businesses are being misled, aren't they?
AI is going to pretend like everything is perfect and okay every time it gets into the situation. So the more access it has to reality, the more access that it has to the things that are actually happening in your own business, the more confidence you can actually build in the results that it's giving you. And that is usually a slow burn. Like it's like everything else. It's like you said it at the beginning. You'd love to have a whole, bunch of resources out there that you could hire, and they come in and somehow they're pre-prepped on the print industry and how you work and everything you do, and you set them down and they can start being immediately effective. But nobody hiring at that level has that expectation. They know there needs to be a level of strategy and development in hiring a person and building that resource to where they need to be. That strategy shouldn't be any different for an AI tool.
So that's really interesting, actually. So Andrew, I guess the very thing then that AI needs most, and from the sounds of it, most often doesn't have access to, is the tribal knowledge, if you like, of a business, the experience that lives inside your team's heads, multiple, many years, generations in times of experience. If the AI model that you invest in can contain that, then actually that's where the gains are going to come from, isn't it?
Yeah, and that tribal knowledge is good because it's made your business successful and you have people that you can rely on. But it also can show that maybe those systems or that tribal knowledge, we run this customer this way, we run this customer another way. Maybe it helps you identify where you shouldn't be doing that. Where and the other tribal knowledge is, let's just say, the machine spec says this runs, 1,000 sheets an hour. But we know that, there's breakdowns, there's that press A runs a little bit different than press B, so they're not going to spec. So, actually capturing that data, getting that information, getting that tribal knowledge, whether it's from a person or from the actual like machines, equipment, software, all that stuff is really important to help build out that system.
Yeah, absolutely. And we mentioned earlier on about the need for a map here, and I think you've taken me literally, Daryl, because I've got in front of me that you're about to present to me an AI Readiness Roadmap, which is great. So I'm going to hand this over to you just for a moment or two and talk us through the slides and the steps that you recommend that businesses take.
Yeah, for sure. So what we found ourselves doing is we seem to be having the same conversations a lot right now with customers, because this is a very common and very popular in terms of, we're getting customers interested in potential products that we're looking at, offerings that we have, and we're starting to have those deep conversations. And we tended to find that we were pretty much asking the same questions, because a lot of the customers that we were talking to, they're coming in and asking about for tool to tool comparisons. So, we've had 3 demos from these different companies doing this particular product, and an estimator is a popular one because that's an area that companies want to be better and faster and more accurate in. And those questions tend to go the same route, because we don't sell a particular product. We're not looking at closing a deal on a product. We're looking at what are we trying to do longer term for the business, and what are the systems that are actually going to get you there, or the combination of systems. And so when we get into some of these conversations, we start asking those next level questions like, okay, yep, we know how that estimator works, but that first question came up, how do you know it's correct? And a lot of times those conversations tend to go around and around, because most companies realize we don't really know, we don't really have anything to compare it to know how correct it is. And that next set of questions usually comes from, okay, now that we have AI, now you've got this tool and you have AI doing that particular level of estimating, what next? Can it do and suggest your production scheduling and improvements there? Can it help you with your resource management? Is it telling you and reporting in your profitability for you? Is there any other part of the ecosystem that tool can plug into? And the resounding answer is generally no, because those products and tools are not built for the larger AI ecosystem. And so that ends up leading to them asking us, well, how do we know if we're ready for what AI should really be? And so we generated and talked about what we call an AI readiness roadmap. And what we want to do there is basically come up with a simple and direct assessment that says, where are you at in your kind of journey, your business system journey, and what really is the potential to move forward and see AI success quickly. So that step one is we tend to want to build out that system baseline. So how much information that the AI would really need to know is in people's heads or in their personal spreadsheets, or how much of it is centralized in there. And so a good example of questions that we ask in there is, do you have a central place where your bills of materials for products, including those routes and operations and those things that need to go down? Is that some place where an AI can get access to it and see it and understand it? And generally we get into those next questions about, well, is that tied into your supply chain, and does it know your costs, and does it know those things that come around that's just that normal course of business? And then the next step is that even if we even have that information and collected, do we have real-time visibility? And so what we say is, if your employee can see it, it's likely the AI can see it. So how much of that visibility of that information and those things is there that AI can really leverage and utilize? And then step 3, and one of the most important, is how well do we have all of this understood? Because the one thing AI is not good at doing is, without proper direction, without proper understanding, is identifying and finding gaps, leaks, and variances in your system. AI will happily ignore all of them through the process. So what sort of processes do we have in place so that we're catching whether or not the outputs and the information that are put in place is actually helping the business and not suddenly causing that confidence death spiral as those things kind of move through? So in general, it's that, do you have your system baseline? How visible is all of that to the people who need it, and therefore AI? And then how good are we at putting in gates or places to be able to see gaps, leaks, and variances to continue to drive the efficiency and the effectiveness of those tools?
And I guess if you get those 3 steps right, then you've got a good foundation, a good solid base to move from. What actually becomes possible once you've got that ecosystem in place?
Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, like I mentioned before, like I was in pre-press before, I was in file setup and things like that, and I moved into automation and workflow and things like that. And one thing that I learned as I was moving into those systems is, although the file manipulation, the setup, the impositions, all that stuff is important, but it's really data, right? It's getting the data. So once we have like those 3 things in place, once you have good data, once you have the rules defined, once you have all that system in place, then the automation, the file setup, the routing to presses, the setting the press settings, the color management, all those things, once you have the good data, once you have that good system in place, that makes the automation basically just an execution at that point. It's just take that data, take the files, execute on them, and then that really, again, frees up that time for, maybe some of those more complex projects that no matter how good your data is, there's no automation that's going to handle all that, and then frees up those people for being able to kind of do their magic, right? To do the thing that they're really good at is problem solving and troubleshooting and creative thinking.
Yeah, no, agreed. Daryl, did you want to follow up on that?
Oh, for sure. I think Andrew's spot on. And when you get these systems and you get these steps done and in place, what that really frees you up to do at that point is create a plan or a strategy that can really get you where you want to be. So if you're able to identify that front end estimating is a large bottleneck or an issue or those sort of things, you can actually now create a plan to say, what are the steps to get to effective estimating and quoting and turning around, even if it's real time, even if I have a website doing it for me for my customer levels and we're driving those things in. What does it take to actually get to success in those areas? And so rather than checking if the spaghetti is cooked by throwing it at the wall, we have a well-planned, strategic way of going about and actually knowing, even if it's a taste test, we know that spaghetti's cooked and we know it's cooked to the level that we need it to be for the dish, right? Which is different than hoping something works. And it doesn't mean that there isn't iteration or direction or change, but it does allow you to go after things in a way that actually, we always used to have a saying where I came from, and it's called, when it comes to business, you want to come slow into the curve and fast out. and too many people want to come fast into the curve. And for those of you that don't know racing, it really is about trying to take that corner as fast as possible without losing control and not even being able to finish the race. So this plan allows you to come slow into the curve so we can accelerate quickly out.
I like that. I like that. And actually, you're doing a very good job of debunking what you said earlier on, which is that for AI really to succeed in a business, it has to be boring, because you chuck a racing analogy in there and suddenly you've made it exciting again. But in essence, there's a paradox though, right? We've spoken about this before, that in order to sell anything to anybody for anything, you can't start by saying it needs to be boring. So the paradox is that the world of software, the world of AI, is trying to sell you something sexy, trying to sell you something exciting, trying to sell you the race car. But actually, what you really need are the bits in the race car that make the race car work. So how do you hold those two things together?
You hold those two things together by having those clear understood goals, having those clear understood directions that you want to be as a company. And if it becomes less about the tool at that particular point and it becomes more about meeting these particular goals, if you want to open 3 new locations up in the next year, if you want to add 25 of a certain type of a customer, if you want to determine if you should add on to your building and add new devices or new machines, how many people you should hire, what vendors you should continue or potentially grow, if you want to add a new product line. Like, at the end of the day, tools should be helping you make business decisions, not just hoping to maybe get a little bit better throughput in one part of the business, which is good, but it really should be tied to some larger goal. And then you can tie the tools and the projects and the telemetry to those particular business goals. And that's why the slow end of the curve is important, because if we try to run at the shiny object, or we try to do the thing too quickly, we're likely to spin out, or we're at least likely to have to brake hard and lose our lead.
I'm loving this racing analogy. We'll keep this going for as long as possible. And I guess, realistically, the goal of every business, whatever industry you're in, is to drive out inefficiencies. And, in many cases, AI was brought in to do just that, to take the mundane jobs off people's plates so that they can do what they're good at, as Andrew said earlier on. So how come all we hear is the print industry losing the plot about AI and what it means? You hear so many different commentators and different media putting the scare stories into people's heads that is all it is about replacing people. Where have we got the narrative wrong?
I think one of the problems is there's no instruction manual, right? Like, there's no. It's a tool, right? It's something to use. AI isn't necessarily a product or a thing, and it can help you with all the stuff, but if you don't ask it the right questions, or again, if you don't have the right data, then you're either going to get incomplete answers. I know for sure I've sat there for half an hour arguing with AI because, like, no, you're just not getting what I'm trying to tell you. So I think that's one of the big things is there's no like cut and dry solution. It's more a strategy and how to use it, how to leverage it, and how to have the right tools that can use it effectively.
So you guys have both been, in your history, race drivers and race car engineers, race car designers. You see, I'm keeping the metaphor going, I promised. You both basically have been the customer at some point, in your working lives, sold the same software, and in many cases the same promises. But how does having lived on that side of the industry change the way that you can now help print businesses, and work with them to develop?
Yeah. So being a customer for a long time, I had to implement this stuff. I had to, take the data from one system, convert it, change it into something, and constantly complaining that either I didn't have access to the data I needed or the tool didn't provide it. And then on the other side of it, when actually dealing with customers, and when we were at DScoop, just having the conversation over and over and over with customers saying, I don't like my system doesn't do this, it doesn't do that, it doesn't do this, because it's not flexible, because somebody designed that system to do a specific thing, and that specific thing may or may not align with what your company is trying to do, how you want to run your business. And just talking with them, and when I work with customers, they're like, well, we really enjoy working with you, you've lived in our shoes, like you've dealt with these problems, you've overcome these problems that we're trying to solve. And I think that gives us a really good basis to work with customers.
So for the business,
and to add on to that, I think too that the answer there is, especially if I grew up highly technical for the longest portion of my career. So everything from low-level infrastructure networks through programming and development, and using a lot of really cool tools and a lot of really cool features and a lot of things in there. But what I ended up learning eventually is the exciting coolness that comes into it when it comes to business isn't about how cool the tool is, it's how effective the tool was at solving a particular business problem. So I think the reason why it's hard to bridge that gap and why we talk about the mundane so much in there is that we don't disagree at what the AI tools should do as a result. But what we disagree with others in the industry on, and what we're hoping to keep people from doing, is we disagree on how to get there. And it's really more about how we see it getting there is using AI to get rid of the mundane things. And suddenly that extremely cool, exciting thing is now not only realized, but it's effective. And it's effective to the business. And that is the truly exciting part.
Exactly. And we were talking about the paradox before, that you've almost got to recognize and understand the boring, the mundane, if you like, in order to be able to enjoy the exciting that comes from it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So listen, for the businesses that now recognize that it's got a problem, people on this webinar today, people watching this on the recording, recognize that there's a problem. You've done a brilliant job, both of you, in answering an awful lot of the questions that I've thrown at you. But let's say they've got no idea what to do. Where do they actually start?
Well, I think one thing they start with is understanding what they do, mapping out the whole business, figuring out where the data lives, and try to build that kind of source of truth, right? What is the source of truth? Is your source of truth, like, again, your emails and your Google Sheets and your calendars, and maybe it's a database or an MIS system, and trying to figure out what the data flow is. I think that's the first thing that they start with is kind of collecting it, making a map, and figuring out where is this all in people's heads, where is all the data stored.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna give a little bit of my because I love the community and I love the situation, so I'm gonna give a little bit of tough love. Where do you start? Well, we start acknowledging that there are no shortcuts to this. That's probably that, what do they always say? The first step to solving a problem is admitting there is one.
That there is one, yeah.
So there are no shortcuts here. So really we have customers and people and situations and partners and all of these people who know and feel it, that this is the next thing, but have to be wondering, what are those true next steps. And for us, the first big warning I'd give is no shortcut. And so there are those companies who have already decided that this is the time for them. They want to go after this. They don't want to be left behind. All of that is great. And so really their first step should be finding that powerful partner that can help them identify how ready they are to get where they want to be. And for those who know and see, and they're kind of stepping back a little bit and you know, kind of like waiting to see a little bit what happens, that they at this time can follow a very similar direction and saying, if their leadership or their people come to them and say, hey, it's time for some AI initiatives, let's make this a reality, let's make this happen. Be prepared. Know what your systems are ready for. Know what your capabilities are. Know what things potentially need to change before that big iteration can hit. Because the more prepared you are, most people tend to not have a problem with timing as long as it's well understood. And to prepare yourself and know how ready you are, and finding those partners to help you find those products that kind of get you where you need to go is a good start for everybody. Some will just need to move faster than others depending on what their initiatives are.
Yeah, that's always the case, isn't it? And I guess if we put this into, and I'm determined to keep this car analogy going, if we put this into the parlance of a car inspection, right? Everybody has to have their car inspected once a year by law to see whether all the systems are operating well and everything is legal and everything is compliant and so on and so forth. We're kind of talking about the same thing, aren't we? What would you say is the AI equivalent of a car inspection for your business? How do you get it checked over? And what will you actually be able to tell them at the end of that inspection?
That's a great point. I don't know about on your area, but yes, 21, 25 point inspection over the vehicle that kind of tells you where's everything at. These belts should be changed. Your brakes are looking, a little rough for wear. Here are the things that we're able to go. Similar deal. Find a partner that is going to actually help you analyze the state of your systems based on where you are and where you want to be. And those inspections can tell you if your brakes are worse for wear, if your timing belts need replaced, and those things, or do you need a new car? Unfortunately, that could be the case in some situations. We hope that isn't the case. But finding companies who are willing to kind of start with not only the tool, but where you want to be and help, identify and find those things along the way, and determine your readiness is the same as like you said, doing that maintenance on that vehicle to know, is that car gonna even be good in the next race?
And I know before we go to some questions from viewers today, that you guys have very kindly offered to deliver a complimentary AI automation health check, that car inspection that we've just been talking about for your business. On the screen there, you'll see a QR code, which will take viewers to a short landing page to be able to book that 20 to 30 minute assessment with Innovaic. I think after today, you can pretty much be guaranteed that these are the mechanics that you need looking at your car, understanding what AI is for and how it can help your business is critical. There's 10 free assessments available. So fastest finger first. If you scan the QR code, there are 10 available. They're worth a lot of money, these health checks. So there's a great opportunity to give your business a head start. Get your car to the front of the grid. See, I'm still keeping it going, Daryl. It'll keep going all evening, I'm sure. But the aim is simple, right? It's to get people to recognize that they have an issue. And then having booked the health check, and you guys can look under the bonnet and see what that issue is and hopefully help them with it. I think that's a genius move on your part. Right, I've got some questions that have come in on the chat, and I just want to get these before we finish today because they're really good, and I'm just trying to find it. Here we go. So This is from Mark. Most people or companies don't know where to start. If the options are operations, customer service, front end, e-commerce, website marketing, etc., in general, what would be the differences or advantages in choosing any of those particular starting points? Daryl, do you want to take that one?
Absolutely. I think that's a fantastic question. In general, the answer is always going to be, from my perspective, with improving those areas, which one is going to have the biggest impact on the business. That's where you tend to start. And then ultimately, once you've identified those areas, so for some companies, being able to empower or, even artificially grow a sales team is a bigger criticality than some companies who, they just kind of have a solid income in incoming customer orders and contracts and situations. And what they're trying to do is, improve efficiencies, supplement resources on the floor and operations, figure out, do we need to hire more, or can we supplement with tools and areas, keep the same size staff, but continue to grow the business, right? Like, those are the critical questions. And the next step after that is, when you know which thing is probably going to have the biggest impact on the organization, now you can say, how ready are we to introduce AI into those particular areas?
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. And we've got a couple of minutes left, Andrew, but I do want to get an answer to this one if I can. This is from Mike. Most PSPs know their current process and the myriad of workarounds that they use, but fighting with the MIS in the process to get to the end. Do you suggest starting again, map the processes, interrogate each to a point of failure, and conclude with a basket of strengths and weaknesses, and then look to AI for solutions to those weaknesses? That there isn't a definitive guide, is there? So what would you suggest? And you've got about 90 seconds.
Yeah. No, again, I think that one of the nice things about asking AI is you can even ask AI to how it can ask the question, which is, all right, and just really just describe what your problem is. Like, what are you trying to solve? And give it as much context, give it as much information as possible. And it may not give you the answer you want, or it may even give you something totally wrong, but at least it gives you an idea where to start, or what to tackle, or how to think about it. That's what I use AI a lot for, is just thinking through problems, right? How maybe, I've been doing this a long time, but I don't have all the solutions. I don't have all the answers, but it helps me figure out, how I can go about it, how I can think about it differently, and then go from there.
Yep. Yeah, that's perfect. And you guys at Innovaic are absolutely leading the way, I think, in as you say, nobody knows all the answers, but at least you can understand the questions. And that's a great starting point for any conversation. And thank you both for taking the time to join me on Print Island today, providing the actual intelligence as well as the artificial intelligence as well. That's always a pleasure. I'm trying to think of a racing car analogy to sign off with, Daryl, but I can't, other than the fact that we've hit the checkered flag. The race is over. And the good news is we didn't crash. We didn't burn. So we're still here living to fight another day. We're going to see you soon at D-Scoop in Slovenia. Print Island will be there, live and livid at the event. So looking forward to seeing people from there. But for now, to Andrew Oswood and to Daryl Davis from Innovaic, thank you for joining us today on Print Island.
As always, it's a pleasure, Richard.
Yeah, thank you, Richard.
Thanks, guys.